Houston, we have a problem. Well, I wouldn't comply. I won't be coerced. I won't be bullied. I won't be threatened. I won't be harassed into shutting up. Today, the homeless organisation I've been staying with since I was evicted from my social housing in Plymouth in Devon, they've served me with a seeking possession order, so they will be making me street homeless. They expect me to leave this property by the 28th of December this year. They've had me here for 2 years. They've tried to get me to comply. They've tried to get me to see a GP, use the NHS, and I will not do it. I've explained to people that I'm protesting the NHS. I've explained why I'm protesting the NHS. Told people that I'm quite an old man. I've been sick for a number of years. And I will not use the NHS. That it will put me in an early grave. Unless they want to address the nonsense they put me through back in 2012. Dr. Julian Stern. I'm not going to shut up about the people that abused me in childhood. That includes being raped 3 or 4 doors down from where Prince Andrew stayed with Koo Stark. About the grooming that I had leading up to that event. It won't stop me talking about BBC's Kenneth Kendall. It won't stop me talking about any of it. Anyway, I don't want to steal people's thunder too much, but I'd already decided to move on. Because I'm achieving nothing here. The consequences for me not shutting up about these things are an early death from preventable illness. They want to put me in the gutter, street homeless, until I learn my lesson. Learn to shut up talking about people they don't want me to talk about, telling the truth about people they do not want me to talk about. Many of the harassments that I was getting in Plymouth in Devon I've also had where I live now. In fact, some of them are carbon copies of the harassment that I received in Plymouth in Devon. They tried a number of times to get me to go and use the NHS again, and I will not do it. And that's a problem for them. It is a problem, because I will die protesting the NHS. An organisation that claims it puts the patient at the heart of everything that it does. Treats people with respect and compassion. I don't think so. Not if it wants to shut you up, it doesn't. So the homelessness organisation that I've been with for 2 years now, that's repeated some of the same harassments that I was getting in Plymouth in Devon, gets paid £100 a week or £4,800 a year to provide me with a support worker. I'm on the 3rd one now, and I called them yesterday to say, I want to save you a journey, there's no point in a support worker coming here, because none of them have supported me in anything. As an example of that, 2 years on and I'm still trying to negotiate with the council and sort my council tax out with the local council. It's not a matter of money, it's a matter of principle. When I moved to Plymouth, the local council told me that I was considered to have a severe mental impairment. It's another label they want to put on me. told me I had a severe mental impairment and I was exempt from paying council tax. Well, it would seem that them making me homeless in Plymouth in Devon cured me of my severe mental impairment, because where I live now the council tells me I don't have a severe mental impairment. It's like a rerun of the "Am I a psychopath?" We're not telling you. No, you're not a psychopath. See someone else a couple of months later. Yes, you are a psychopath. It's just a rerun of that. Anyway, the council have been doing this thing where they insist that I go and see a GP or somebody from the NHS to sort out my council tax. They'll sort my council tax out if I see somebody from the NHS. I've explained to them why I don't use the NHS anymore. I've also explained to them that my mental health diagnosis is one that's considered to be lifelong. So there is no cure. It can be managed, but there is no cure. Which is how I ended up with the label of severe mental impairment. Of course, when they gave me that label of severe mental impairment, it suited their purposes to label me as such. Because it gives them permission to interfere with my life, because I'm severely mentally impaired. Please note, if you've ever seen anybody helping me or talked about anybody that's actually helped me do anything, even a simple thing like sorting out council tax, when people are getting paid nearly £5,000 a year to help me do things like that, if you ever see that and I've missed it somehow, please point it out to me, won't you? No, people are not supporting me. So why is the local council paying this organisation £5,000 a year for something they're not providing? The whole purpose of it is to get me to give in and go and see somebody from the NHS. That way I'm not protesting it anymore. They've broken my protest and that is not going to happen. I will die. See, I remember Bill Maloney going around Occupy in London asking people if they'd die for their cause. There's a reason Bill Maloney was asking that question. Because people who are prepared to die for their cause are dangerous. If somebody dies early because they're protesting the NHS over something, people should be asking questions about that. Why a big powerful organisation like the NHS has not managed to resolve an issue with a patient. The reason they don't want to try and resolve it is because they know they're already in the wrong. They know they're in the wrong. Anyway, as I've said quite a few times before, this has been going on for 30 years. Since I went to Her Majesty's Prison Grendon and talked about people who abused me in childhood. Also I had a dispute at Grendon because I wanted to report those people to the police and they would not allow that to happen. Instead what they've tried to do is control my life. Persuade me, coerce me, bully me, harass me into not talking about certain things. Her Majesty's Prison Grendon got to hear about a lot of my life though. It heard about being abused in childhood, and Her Majesty's Prison Grendon would acknowledge that that is childhood trauma. They also know how I tried to cope, carry on, try and manage my life living with that trauma. But I also know how to use that trauma against somebody. So for instance, people abused in childhood may become quite self-destructive. I say quite self-destructive, but very self-destructive. I have that character trait. It doesn't take much to provoke that in me. And so all these petty games, these coercions, this bullying, this refusal to resolve anything, this going round in circles, this endless weighing somebody down with bullshit. Treating me like I do not count at all is exactly how people who abused me in childhood treated me. And they know full well that that triggers, re-triggers trauma. And so, however hard you try, if they do it enough, if they provoke you enough, if they give you enough of it, you're going to start becoming self-destructive. And then they stand back and go, oh look at them. They are the epitome of an abuser, and they abuse me to shut me up, to stop me from talking about things they are protecting, people that they have protected, people they are still protecting. Consultant psychiatrists are very clever people. I know enough about state organisations and how it gets people to comply. Very difficult people to comply. I don't understand it in the same way that a consultant psychiatrist understands it, but they know how to use tactics to get somebody to comply. They've got a whole arsenal and weaponry at their disposal to do that, to achieve it. But I understand enough to recognise it. I understand enough to recognise what's going on. I understand very well what an abusive relationship is. So where I stand at present, the state is being my abuser. Of course, the threat of homelessness also puts me back where I was when I was 14 years of age. Homeless. Picked up, groomed and abused. So what they're really doing is recreating that whole situation and scenario all over again, so I can relive it mentally and emotionally. And they know they're doing that. Don't make the mistake of thinking this is just human error. It's not. Back in 1988, between 1988 and 1990, I went to Her Majesty's Prison Grendon to deal with my offending behaviour. And a large part of my offending behaviour was the abuse that I had in childhood, was because of that. I tried to report it to the police and they wouldn't allow me to do that. Well, I did talk about being raped by somebody who was a friend 3 or 4 doors down from where Prince Andrew was with Koo Stark. I talked about grooming behaviour leading up to that event. Because nobody was really saying anything about Prince Andrew back in 1988, 1990, were they? And there's evidence that I talked about this back then. Because the therapy group had a diary. And it was somebody's job within the group to make notes on who used the group and what was talked about. Anyway, I'm sure some people see the picture. Thanks very much for listening.